a cup of coffee, sit back and listen to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life features stories to inspire and motivate you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. Change your attitude, change your life. Visit cyacyl.com.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in. When adversity comes our way, we arrive at a fork in the road that determines our future path. We can choose to go in the direction of sorrow and despair and create a tragedy that influences our every thought and action. Or we can go in the direction where we try to understand the lesson, experience personal growth, and find the gifts that are being offered. Today's guest, Dr. Terry Gordon, shares with us from personal experience how a tragedy can actually be a blessing in disguise. As a physician who on a daily basis has dealt with life and death, Terry understands that life is precious and can change in an instant. Terry's personal journey has resulted in a spiritual awakening to a clearer understanding of life. A retired cardiologist, Terry is the author of the new book, No Storm Lasts Forever. Terry, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Joan.
Terry, you're a cardiologist, and you've spent most of your life fixing people's hearts. But now you're fixing hearts in a different way, and you're affectionately known as the wound healer with a mantra in life to give yourself away every day. So as a physician who's saved countless lives, why wasn't that enough for you? Why do you feel the need to keep doing more?
You know, Joan, when I really was forced into retirement, I fell off of a ladder and hurt my neck. And, often when you're faced with that sort of life-changing event, you lament that change. And I never looked back. I always have looked forward, and my hope and prayer is that whatever it was that I chose to do from that point on would continue doing what I'd been doing in the past, and that is serving others. So that's really what my goal has always been and will continue to be.
Terry, I meet so many people that are just doing amazing work. And as you shared your story as to why you were forced to retire from cardiology, the thought that went through my mind immediately was that fall off the ladder wasn't an accident, because it puts you in a totally different path of helping so many lives in a different way. And I think your work is just as important, if not more.
Well, there are no mistakes. As you know, everything is in perfect order. And that's what I kind of knew before. And then once I had the experience that hopefully we'll talk about today a little bit, it became even more evident that everything is in perfect order.
As you've just started to speak about, you really do understand that life can change with a blink of an eye. You got that dreaded phone call that every parent prays never happens. Tell us a little bit about your son Tyler and what happened.
Well, let me preface it by telling you what happened the night before. My daughter, Maddie Rose, had come in from Chicago. She was teaching in an inner-city school, and she came up to my office, and, it's a parent's sixth sense when you just tell something's not quite right. She had this heaviness dripping from her, and I said, "What's up, honey?" And so she came over and plopped down at my feet and put her arms on my knees, and she said, Dad, she's 27 and still calls me Dad. She says, Dad, I always thought that the older I got, the more control I assumed over my life, the easier life would become. And then with this tear trickling down her cheek, she said, "But it's just not working out that way." And so I pulled her up into my arms and rocked her as I had for 27 years and paused for a long moment because I knew my response to her was going to be a very important one. And I said, darling, I don't think that's the way it's supposed to be. If we are to progress in this thing we call life, if we are to grow, we must face greater and greater obstacles. There's an expression from the Kabbalah, the ancient mystical text of Judaism, that says, the falls of our life provide the energy to propel us onto a higher path. And I shared with her, we really should be thankful for the crap that comes our way, because they are gifts. And I kissed her on the cheek and kind of left her with that thought. And 6:40 the next morning, I received one of the worst phone calls a parent could get. The grave voice on the other end of the line informed me that our son Tyler had been involved in a car accident, and he had shattered his neck. And then, Joan, came the dreaded words, "Your son is quadriplegic." You can't imagine. You worry about that phone call. You can't imagine the impact of those words when you really hear them. Well, being a physician, I had about 20 seconds of denial. I knew where he was going to be going, what was going to be happening, and even what we might foresee down the path. And within an hour, I had packed a bag hastily and was speeding up to the Cleveland airport to try to get on an overbooked flight. Somehow I got on that flight, and I was in a window seat, and I was like a caged cat. I was now incommunicado. I didn't know if Tyler was alive, dead, brain damaged, bleeding out from internal organ damage. I was crazed, and the thoughts were just banging inside my head. And I remember Joan praying. And as I started, I was just in this, it was like I was in a hurricane, the middle of a hurricane, and I looked down, and there was darkness, and it was cold, and it was wet, and it was frightening, and there was this loud whooshing sound. And I prayed to God to help, not for me, but for those I love, for my son, and help me to help my wife, and help me to help my children through this. And I remember saying, I don't think I can do this. And gradually, that loud noise and that coldness and the darkness abated as I was being enveloped in this cocoon of white noise, strand by strand. And I found myself in this place of unfathomable peace. And I remember saying once again, I just don't think I can do this. And I can't tell you, Joan, that I heard the voice of God, but I heard the words. And he said, yes, you can. And I said, but I don't know how to do this. And he said, remember, everything is in perfect order, even this. And he reminded me, I had just had this conversation with my daughter. And he told me, you can talk the talk, but now you must live it. And I remember saying, but how can I do this? And the most profound thing came to me. God said, treat this as if it was something you had chosen. Now, why would I choose a tragedy such as this?
Mm-hmm.
What possible good could come from such a life-altering calamity? What lessons could be hidden in this turmoil? What was the purpose of this negative experience? Those were questions that started scrolling through my mind. And it changed in a nanosecond my whole approach to everything. Everything. It changed my outlook. It changed my ability. It changed my perspective. You know, there are some that believe we choose what we to experience in a particular lifetime. And that choice is based on what your spiritual development requires in order to continue on its course. What I've come to appreciate, though, Joan, is that we don't necessarily learn what becomes fully apparent at first glance. And it may take time and only be understood with crystal clarity once more of the pieces to the puzzle are added. But it totally changed the way I looked at this.
Now, Terry, if I may interrupt for a moment.
Sure.
For a parent or someone that's going through a crisis and you came to that fork in the road and you made the conscious choice to accept what was presented to you and to view it as though it was a choice and you went in that direction, did you ever vacillate back and forth? Did you have days where you woke up following that and your whole attitude was back to this is tragedy, this is chaos? How were you able to maintain that path?
Well, you hit the nail on the head because, yes, there were many times where I became frantic, overwhelmed by what we were facing, in Tyler's injury and the rehab and even coming home. I'm not telling you that it's been very easy. I'm not telling you that I am happy all the time. What I am going to share with you is that I've found peace. And it's an interesting way that I found that. It's kind of a hard concept for people to grasp.
And that's why I brought that up, because so often I think people think, okay, Terry made the decision, he's going to be happy, he's going to look at it this way, he moves on in his merry way, and that's just not how it works. And people, when they go back and forth with their feelings, they tend to think that they're failing. And I want everyone to understand that this is always a process. It's a conscious decision, then it's a process, and it's a lot of hard work.
It is.
But as you're saying, you can come out the other end, and you can really experience the blessings and the gifts.
Well, two things. What I found, first of all, is that in the midst of the turmoil, in the midst of the suffering, there is beauty right alongside. It's like it's the non-duality of life. There's no such thing as happiness and sadness. They're really one and the same. They're conjoined with one another.
Terry, was that a turning point for you? Were you always a spiritual man? Did anything that you experienced as a doctor the miracles that you've seen, did that prepare you in any way for this decision or that moment of clarity?
Absolutely. The foundation blocks had been set by the universe for years and years and years. I just didn't realize it. I wasn't cognizant of it. And there were several things that happened in my life that kind of brought it to the surface. I've always felt like I was kind of a spiritual guy, but not really. But certainly all of our experiences lay the foundation for what is yet to come, and that's actually what happened to me. I fortuitously bumped into Wayne Dyer on the beach in Maui. Had no idea he lived there. Had tried to call him several years before to tell him how much he's helped me. Never was able to connect with him. And I'm walking down the beach and bumped into Wayne Dyer, a man who's changed my life. So yes, there were many instances looking back. And that's an interesting concept. You can revisit the past with different attitudes from the present and glean a totally different meaning from a circumstance or interaction.
Once you do choose to see things the way that you're speaking about, and you do look back into your past, everything that leads up to a moment, it is all in line. And when you do view it that way, it's really amazing. I mean, you see what a miracle life is and how God has aligned your life for you when you choose to let it happen.
Yeah, there's no question that that's happened. An interesting thing, I had just about finished the book, and I quote Kenny Loggins, who he is, the entertainer, in my book. And I was in Lake Charles, Louisiana, leaving to fly back home. Our flight got canceled. When we finally got on a flight, this guy from behind me says, "Man, I hope this doesn't mess up our connections in Houston." And I turned around to say, "Well, maybe they're delayed in Houston as well." I said, "Man, you look an awful lot like Kenny Loggins." He goes, "Hi, I'm Kenny Loggins." And I'd already written and used his lyrics in my book. So the universe provides much for us.
Yeah, there are no coincidences.
No, there are not.
We need to take a break. When we return, we'll continue our discussion with author of No Storm Lasts Forever, Dr. Terry Gordon. This is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life now has a free monthly digital magazine that can be read online or emailed to your inbox. Each month, nationally recognized leaders in their field provide the information that you need to inspire and motivate you. We believe in a holistic approach to life, incorporating mind, body, and spirit. As philosopher Francis Bacon said, knowledge is power. Use the wisdom provided in the publication and apply it to your everyday life. Visit cyacyl.com for more information or to begin your free subscription. That's cyacyl.com. Welcome back to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman, and our guest today is Dr. Terry Gordon, author of the new book, No Storm Lasts Forever. We've been talking about how we can turn adversity in our lives into blessings, and Terry has been sharing a very personal journey that he's been on. Terry, so many people, as I mentioned before the break, they are going through unspeakable challenges and feeling with just so much stress and so much pain. And the interesting thing that I've learned about you is that you say that stress is a choice and that most of us create our own hell. So who in their right mind would choose to live this way, and why do we?
Well, first of all, nobody puts thoughts in your mind. We create our own thoughts. And those thoughts can be very good, they can be very destructive. But, stress is an interesting thing. If I were to ask you, Joan, to go out of the studio right now with a bucket and fill it up with stress and bring it back to me, you wouldn't be able to do that. Mm-hmm. So, the mind is something that has a lot of power. And as you know, many people lament the past and ruminate about the past and worry about the past and fret about the future. You really can't, because you can't change it. It's so simple. You cannot change what happened 2 seconds ago. So the mind can do us a lot of harm. But everything in life is a thought. What you think of me is your thought of me. What you think of this interview is your thought of that interview. And you can change that thought anytime you want to. I had an experience when I was a cardiologist. When we were on call for the weekend, it was horrific. We would work Monday through Friday, and from Friday night until Monday morning, we were the only cardiologist on call for 12 or 14 cardiologists. We'd get every phone call, we'd see every patient in the hospital, and then Monday morning, we'd start it all over again. So we worked 12 straight days. It was terrible. About week and a half before being on call, I would feel myself spiraling into depression, dreading it. And Wayne Dyer, the guy that's changed my life, he suggested that you change the thought. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So I decided I was going to play a game with myself. I was going to play like I couldn't wait for the weekend to come, that I anticipated the hundreds of pages on my beeper, the many phone calls. I would anticipate that because I was going to be able to help somebody. And guess what happened? I had the best weekend on call ever. I enjoyed it thoroughly just by changing the thought. That applies to any perceived problem that you have. You can change the thought about it. So it's kind of what I did here. I could lament the fact that in an instant our entire lives have changed, and it has. But rather than moaning about it and pitying myself about it, I've decided, this is a gift. God has given me this gift. Hidden lessons are within this injury and what it's done to our family. But, I actually can, and people, they raise their eyebrow when I say this. This has, in many ways, been a beautiful experience. Tyler's injury, my son's injury, was actually a loving, magnanimous gift from the divine. And I truly feel, people all the time say, Terry, you don't deserve this. You've done so much to help people. You've saved so many lives. And my response to them, Joan, is this. I know hidden within painful experiences are important lessons. And we don't go through these experiences because we're bad people. And no, we're not being punished. Life isn't unfair. Life is always fair. The gift of each of these seemingly negative experiences is a tool that helps to propel us onto that higher path. I'm deserving of the heartache. I'm worthy of the lessons God's given me. It's all in changing the thought, changing your perspective, changing your outlook. You can either choose to resist the gift or be accepting of it.
Terry, as a cardiologist, who better than you knows what stress and negative thoughts do to us on a physical level? And I'm not putting down people that need to take medication and the doctors that prescribe it, because there are very valid cases and situations where medication is definitely the way to go. But do you find that in today's society we're looking for that quick fix? Somebody who's going through a death or experiencing a divorce or a loss, they go to a doctor. I mean, the normal progression is to be sad, is to feel your feelings. And immediately they're given a little pill and told to go home. And we never deal with the root cause of the situation. We mask it, we bandage it. So what do you think we need to do to really treat ourselves at the core of what's happening to us?
Well, you're absolutely right. We live in an instant society. If I have the sniffles, I want to take a pill that fixes that. If I'm tired, I need something to jack me up. If I'm too jacked up, I need something to calm me down. You're right, there are certain circumstances in which pharmaceuticals temporarily can help. But those are way too often prescribed. And that's why, you have so many kids, people, adults addicted to medications. So I agree. You're right. The sadness, the pain of loss, that does need to be worked through. But you're exactly right. There's just too much in the way of pharmaceuticals that we've shoved down people's throats, and sadly, in large part, it's the physician's fault for doing that, because it's so much easier to write a prescription for Xanax than it is to sit down and talk with them and help them manage their sadness and their frustration and their anxiety.
Terry, you spoke before about how we live so much in the past and we hold on to our anger and grudges. And how would you say, what is it that we need to do to keep our ego from getting in the way of our personal relationships?
Well, it's a multifaceted question. I can answer it this way. Inside each of us are two selves. One is the mortal self. It's limited by the physical plane. It's encapsulated in skin. It's an ego trapped inside a transitory body. It's fragile and can be irreversibly altered by disease, injury, and even our own thoughts. The other self is the authentic self. It's the immortal self, the spiritual self that lives in a place of much higher consciousness. It resides in a space where, as an invisible, passive, a non-judgmental observer, that's where our spiritual growth unfolds. Now, in my personal predicament, my self that resides in the physical world undeniably feels the excruciating pain of a parent watching as his son endures an ocean of suffering. But what I've been able to do is to become transparent, to lose the solid aspect of myself. And in doing so, I've been able to rise above the resistance and transcend the limitations of the material world. It's a strange thing. I've been able to, in my spiritual self, I've been able to observe everything as it's unfolding. I can watch Tyler as he goes through this experience and watching the pain. I can watch my wife, Angela, as she goes through. And I can, in this place, no agenda, no judgment, I'm just an observer. I can even observe myself as I'm going through this when I'm in the physical plane. So it's a place of unbelievable peace. Even it's a way to kind of dissect yourself away from the material plane, the egoic plane. And as you know, the ego often interferes with many things in us.
The book is No Storm Lasts Forever by Dr. Terry Gordon. If you'd like more information about Terry and his work, you can visit his website, drterrygordon.com. That's drterrygordon.com. Or as always, you can visit our website, cyacyl.com. That stands for Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. While on our site, listen to past shows as podcasts, read the digital magazine, sign up for our mailing list, take part in our book club, and be sure to follow the show on Facebook and Twitter. Terry, I'm sorry to say that we are out of time. There's so much more that I wanted to talk to you about, and I'm very happy that you stopped by today to share some of what you've learned with us. I'm sorry that you've had to go through this experience and that you've had so much pain, but I'm very happy that you were able to turn your pain into something that can touch so many lives. So thank you for your work, thank you for your book, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Jim. Namaste.
The book is No Storm Lasts Forever by Dr. Terry Gordon. This is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in.